Hello, this is Cryptolyze. I hope you are well. This Monday, 11 December 2023. We meet today to talk about BTC, to talk about current events. We have BTC starting, the day well in the red with the Asian opening. We will come back to this liquidation cluster, and before that we will review the various news. You will see that there are still quite a few things, particularly with Tether, that are happening, and it will start right away. If you want to train and really enjoy bull running, it's simple. There is perfect, complete, free training available. It's through an educational journey that teaches you everything about blockchain, crypto, investment, technical analysis, and trading. All this for free in comments and descriptions. You have exercises, multiple choice questions, modules, videos, guides, everything to support you in your progress. We'll start with the little joke of the day, which was the inclusion on December 9th of Bitcoin in the U.S. National Vulnerabilities Database. What exactly is it? This is something that reports all hacks, or in any case, all known and recognized vulnerabilities. And what is interesting is what was reported, the vulnerability of Ordinal's protocols. So concretely, it is the functionality, or in any case the flaw, as one of the core developers of Bitcoin described it, as being the flaw which made it possible to have the ordinals, and therefore to exceed the size of the blocks in terms of data. And this is what is criticized by BTC maximalists. To be continued. For the moment, we still have the rumor of a patch to correct this vulnerability, and therefore prevent the creation of the next ordinals. The information to really remember at the moment is around Tether and OFAC blocks. So they put in place a proactive way of sanctioning wallets to actually block the funds that are on them. In any case, blocking USDT given that they are not OFAC compliant. OFAC being the legal means of the USA to control assets which are outside American territory. And precisely, this is what allows sanctions to be applied. And we see that the idea behind it at the level of Tether is to say, don't worry, we managed to be OFAC compliant. It reminds us of what was done by Cycle a short time ago. The fact of showing that they have no relationship with Justin Sun, with Tron, they have blocked everything that was precisely around the notion of OFAC, and we sees that it is now Tether which is starting to get into it, and which is really getting into it a lot, in which they blocked 161 wallets, and precisely only 11 held from USDT. But on the other hand, they were blocked. These wallets, therefore, can no longer receive, withdraw, or transfer USDT, and this is the very principle. So it means that the main stablecoin is completely blocked and cannot be modified. And this is where we also realize the strength of impact of these giants, USDC and USDT, i.e., that apartment where you actually own their stablecoin. They have the possibility of immobilizing or blocking them, and therefore preventing any potential transfer to your wallets. And remember that this is one of the simplest ways to bring the entire crypto world into line. It is to clearly control stablecoins, and that is what is happening little by little, but which is at the same time logical. Tether, and certainly the next one on the big list of the Department of Justice and the SEC in the USA, so we are very careful. And that's why we also have this approach saying, but don't worry, we are going to become OFAC compliant, and we are doing everything we can to do so without you asking us. We are accelerating in that direction. Speaking of acceleration, clearly this week, we are going to have a lot of news at the macro level, the monthly core CPI November, which falls on Tuesday, 12 December at 14:30. We will obviously see the Fed and FOMC on Wednesday. Very, very important Powell's speech for the end of the year, which will certainly set the tone for 2024. We hope that we will stay in this notion, no bearish, and precisely stay the course to see if it will be held. That will be the answer. Wednesday, we will end the week with the press conference of the ECB, rather classic with deposit facilities, very little impact for me on the U.S. market we will end with the 15. December, Friday, 15:45. The PMI services of December. Very, very important to see whether or not we are staying the course, and to know that we will close the second week of December, and therefore that implies that we will start afterwards in the following week to enter the sell periods, and therefore we will have to be careful on the classic markets. At the CME level, we can clearly see that we are holding the 97, the 85 for the next rates, so we should not move at the level of the Fed rates, and which is completely classic. When we see the state of the American market, the SPX, We see that we are still in a retest here of the resistance zone, very important, with a rather positive start to the week. We are preparing to retest anyway once again this resistance, and I think we will continue. NASDAQ. Continue to push, to maintain ourselves, to keep the SP 500 rising in all cases. It will be especially this week, which will be decisive whether or not we are in a breathing market, and then we will start the sale anyway, annual as usual. In terms of oil, we have a small rebound, but what we will have to watch is going to be the retest here in the 73.89, or we break and therefore we start to rise again, and therefore we will potentially have the beginning of inflation, which returns, in any case, the specter of inflation, which returns to the forefront for this end of the year in 2024, or we do a retest and we do a bearish continuity, which is much simpler. In terms of the dollar, we will have to decide whether we hold the course or not. Namely that we have a level of retest here in the 104. Either we are going to retest the 104, or we maintain this level of ranging here, this which would be rather positive. So 104.3 before doing a bearish retest to get the 102. Here's 0.5, therefore 102. We will say, in order to be able to consolidate this level, and therefore the drop here in the dollar would be rather positive for all the assets and a general breathing of the market. You have in the description and comments the possibility of downloading my strategy guide on investment and trading in cryptocurrency, in which there are 30 pages to know everything about how to proceed, how to benefit from this bull run. And in addition, in description and comment, you also have the possibility of having access to our newsletter, which is available and which will be available every month. The links are in comments and descriptions. At the level of BTC, we have just breathed with a big bearish breakout with big long liquidations, and we will look at that. We see that we have liquidated 400 million. So it has been a relatively long time since we have liquidated so much, including 348 million long ones. We can clearly see that it's almost only the long ones that we went to find on almost all the exchanges. And that's really important because the market needed a breather. And as I explained, the acceleration of the beginning. The last week surprised a lot of people, and it's a bit the same principle to have this acceleration. On this acceleration and the breakup of 32,000, we see that we had a phase of temporalization with the establishment of a doji, therefore of a candle of uncertainty, and we see that we still had to this time add a lot of shorts. And we continued to push before having precisely this breath at, which is this candle this week at, here of 13 November, and then we did the acceleration again too. So there it is logical to go and liquidate a part, especially since we went to look for those who arrived at the end. We will look at it together. However, we did not touch the CME gap. The CME gap is still very present. We made the breakout. We actually maintained a lower low for a whole part of this weekend, and in which we worked this part there before having the bearish breakout. In two candles on the opening of the Asian market, which are all rather classic. Generally, we look for where there are the biggest levers. And this time, at price levels like 44,000, there are relatively few people shorting at high leverage. We broke bearish, in which we went to recover all these levers with a candle which was almost reduced to 100%, but we maintained the CME gap. So for me, we have a price call always present in the lower part. When we have these liquidity hunts, we generally do them in two stages. 1, bearish acceleration breathing, 2, bearish acceleration. There we would also have a target which is potentially sought here, the 38.37.5, in which we also have this level of rupture of the last acceleration. Therefore, 1, acceleration, 2, and we see that this whole level started with the break of 38,000, and we would go to retest this level when we take the Fibonacci extension of this bearish impulse on its retracement, second bearish impulse, to go search the breakdown levels that we know here, which would be a very good support. Very nice support. In addition, if we go back a little bit, which would be held here by the ranging that we experienced in the period 2022, January to March 2022, April 2022, therefore with the fall of Terra Luna, in which we have a part of the range with the extensions which are low, a high part of the range with the extensions which are high. So here we have the maintenance of the resistance is very present, so with the high of range who rejected us to potentially go and retest the 37.38 and therefore a nice breath in waiting, and we see that we have a small candle which is being prepared. I think that we will really have the sequel movement a little later in the day. Generally, we have quite little ranging. We could have a few small candles that set up like that before having a small acceleration, before having a bearish breakout. But in all cases, we would perhaps go and retest. We would go and retest the 43,350 tack up to now before making a bearish continuation. That could be logical to accumulate a little more liquidity. For what? Because when we look at Kingfisher, we see that we have liquidated everything that was below. We are in the process of recreating a very little bit of liquidity, but it is relatively weak. But we see that we have smoothed liquidity well from 40, from 38, and especially from 37. There we really see the liquidity clusters. We really see the large block of liquidity that is waiting. And I think that a period of ranging to go and retest here, the key level that we are waiting for to be able to rebuild long liquidity and then reverting to a bearish trend is completely logical and is what we have already known for some time. What is also interesting to see is that at the level of the CVD perp we have sunk completely, therefore a big break at the level of the CVD, which shows that we have indeed triggered all the limit orders during the bearish breakout, therefore. We really have a hunt for liquidity which has been given. And here what is interesting to see is that for me I consider that it is this bearish impulse. So what I'm going to wait for is going to be a structuring of this style. Okay, when I have these structures. There at the level of the perpetual, I tell myself that in fact we will go and rehunt a long game and therefore at that moment we will have a fairly strong interest which could arrive. But this is not yet the case. We will be patient like D. Usually we have the CVD of the spots which in all cases continues to sink. So really limit orders which are triggered very little aggressiveness in the market, which is completely normal at the end of the year. In any case, on this end-of-year preparation in which we are going, have a breather and then the end-of-year holidays, a new acceleration in all cases. When we look a little at the open interest, what is interesting to see is that the positions of the top traders are always maintained in agreement here. We have a small inflection, but we still remain very significant levels above 55.5. So that means that we are maintaining this level very, very well. We have the liquidation cluster, which is there, and we are still on a funding rate, which is still very aggressive compared to the entire market. What is interesting to see is that on the whole, on the other hand, there is almost no change in agreement regarding the open interest of the market. We have a small drop. We have a small candle which went low but which started to rise again. So we still maintain the 3 billion here. So we still have a market which is still ultra leveraged and which has a lot of levers present. Hence these liquidation movements which are normal overall at the level of this type of market. We had a very good acceleration. We maintained well for a certain time. There we are in a breathing phase, which is classic, that we has already known if we go back a little bit, hop, we will get there. Here, for example, in which we had first bearish impulse, retracement, second bearish impulse, and which is logical when we actually have very strong movements of this style. For me, what will be important is really going to be to hold the 37,500, 37,000. If, on the other hand, we break this level there, we will have to ask ourselves questions. That is to say that we will go and get liquidity here at the level of 35,000. And there, on the other hand, we will have a real reflection to be made on the hunt for real liquidity, and therefore that would imply that we would have news which would arrive for the sell, the news which we know, and which we have already been waiting for some time on this chain. In any case, personally, I am waiting to see the consolidation, then the bearish retest to chase this CME gap, go from an extension to 37,500, and then we will see if we have an accumulation or not, and how the price reacts to this. In any case, it's rather classic. I hope you liked this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a like and a comment, and we'll meet up to talk about Casper, the crypto CSPA.